Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Joining with me today is Tim Diacono. We've got yet another action-packed episode for you today. Our first story is all about how Malta could allow standing offence after Santa Marija. The second is all about a Standards Commissioner's report into ROSIANNE CUTAJAR-YORGEN FENECH property deal and how a Labour MP's family was threatened because of his involvement. The third story is a really positive one, all about how a long-awaited cystic fibrosis medicine is arriving in Malta this week. Then it's all about the public brawls we've been seeing and a St. Julian's Mayor proposal to address the issue. And the last story is about LUZZU, an amazing award-winning Maltese film, finally getting its theatrical release in Malta. And before we start, don't forget to check out Lovin Daily. That's our daily newsletter giving you a rundown of all our top stories of the day. It's super easy to sign up for it. Just go on our website and follow a little button on the side of the page. Tim, on to our first story, standing events.
Yes, not yet. But the next stage in Malta's COVID reopening plan was announced yesterday, and it's one that a lot of people, as you said, have been waiting for quite a long time. A target date has been given for the return of standing events, which would mean parties as we know them, people standing up and mingling, or rather having to just sit down at all times. And the target date given by the Health Minister is right after Santa Marija, so after the 15th of August, around mid-August, we could start seeing the return of proper parties. This is conditional, as all the steps have been, depending on the COVID-19 situation. However, it is a bit of a ray of hope for not just for the sector in general, which has been dying out for some work and have been completely discriminated against by the government in its reopening plan, but also for people in general. I think people do need to enjoy themselves. People are already mingling as it stands, and it's only fair that Malta takes advantage of its high vaccination rate, as the United Kingdom is doing, and allow life to resume.
Yeah, I agree with you over there. I'm sure people in the industry though are quite happy, at least, to be given some sort of, long-term plan about how the way things are going to move, right? It's just been nothing but uncertainty for them, really no idea. At least this gives them sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. And when it comes to the proposals themselves, I'm still, even though I'm vaccinated and everything, I think I'm still on the side of exercising caution when it comes to very large-scale events. Last year, I think that was sort of our downfall in summer, right? We opened to the tourism again.
The vaccine.
I know to the vaccine. No, you are right. No, we're not. But still, as a new variant around, I'd rather exercise at least some caution. I'm not saying don't open standing events, but let's keep it. I don't think over 1,000 people should really happen just yet. On to COVID, actually itself, there has been an increase in cases. Yesterday there were 12 new positive cases, putting up active cases up to 79. I just want to say, just because it's been a slight increase in cases, it really shouldn't be a major cause of concern just yet. This is just like a natural consequence to reopening up certain restrictions. That's going to happen anyway. COVID's never going to leave us. I don't think we'll ever, have 0 cases an entire year, so might as well just get used to it. On to our next story. Eyes are all on a Standards Commissioner's report into claims that MP ROSIANNE CUTAJAR pocketed thousands of euros from a Yorgen FENECH Imdina property deal in 2019. At the time, Yorgen FENECH was outed as the owner of 17 Black, but he had yet to be arrested for the assassination of journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia. So it's a very strange case where people claim that ROSIANNE CUTAJAR acted as a censoria on this deal and pocketed quite a bit of money from it. However, a really interesting tidbit that came out of the Commissioner's report is the involvement of Ian Castaldi-Paris. That's also a Labour MP who also competes against ROSIANNE CUTAJAR on the 8th District. So Ian Castaldi-Paris, who is a notary by profession, was actually the notary present at the signing of an affidavit concerning the claims against ROSIANNE, CUTAJAR and Yorgen FENECH. So it's actually quite a bit of a murky timeline itself. So it's been revealed that Ian Castal de Paris had actually proposed to the person to use the affidavit because he wanted evidence in hand to go speak to Prime Minister Robert Abela. That conversation actually never happened. Now Ian Castal de Paris claims that he's actually been threatened since against his family because of his role in the affidavit with somebody, an unnamed individual, telling him, you know, don't publish his affidavit or something bad might happen. Now, there's even more questions about the affidavit itself because it's actually been ripped up by the person making the claim, and the only copy the Standards Commissioner has seen was a soft copy handed to journalists at the Times of Malta. When it comes to ROSIANNE CUTAJAR herself, she's obviously denied all wrongdoing. However, she did admit that she did meet with Yorgen FENECH, was given a bag with 30,000 euros in cash. However, that was only passed on to her associate Charles Farrugia, who was actually involved in the deal. ROSIANNE CUTAJAR claims she received a 9,000 euro gift from Yorgen FENECH, and that's about it. Now, the Standards Commissioner himself sort of doubted maybe their versions of events. He said they were conflicted. However, there's still some mechanism in the report itself. Myself, I mean, at least on the gift part, I just have to say, like, whether it's a gift or not, I mean, an MP, even though it wasn't technically wrong at the time, shouldn't be accepting gifts from people who are allegedly involved in major corrupt deals, you know, and accepting just a bag of cash like that.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it. However, the issue that George Hislop has zeroed in upon that the Nationalist Party is now looking into is this issue of not of the birthday present, but the 46,000 euro that she allegedly took, and the problem would be that she didn't declare it or pay tax on it. It's worth noting that if she Sorry about that, we just had a brief technical problem. Onto what we're discussing. So yes, the involvement of Ian Castal de Paris in the ROSIANNE CUTAJAR story. This is the first time that we've really heard about his involvement in the story, and what's also interesting is that George Hislop makes it very clear that he suspects that Castal de Paris wasn't just a part of it, it was a key part of it, and that he actually might have leaked the story itself to the newspapers, which would basically mean that he stabbed his district colleague in the back. And it would be interesting to know what the Prime Minister makes of it, that you know, that you have your own MPs, one of them trying to smear the other one by leaking affidavits, by convincing your client to sign an affidavit against your district rival, and then leaking said affidavit to the press again. It's not confirmed that he did it at all, but the coincidence is
a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, and they're quite funny to say the least. Now on to some good news. Long-awaited medicine for cystic fibrosis sufferers called Kaftrio or Trikafta is arriving in Malta this week. Now, this was promised by the Prime Minister a few months ago after a number of patients, specifically one young Maltese girl called Mandy Vella, opened up about her struggles with the hereditary illnesses and how she has to treat her condition every single day, and how it's prevented her from having a normal life. She even had to quit her job and just stay stuck at home, not because of COVID, but because of cystic fibrosis. And it really, she really managed to raise awareness to the point that the Prime Minister called her up personally and promised that the government's going to start spending €3 million a year to acquire this medicine, even though there aren't many cystic fibrosis sufferers in Malta. There's only around 25 people. And but yeah, so even though what some might consider to be a waste of money, €3 million, it's no joke to spend on a few people, but for these people it's going to make a world of difference. And I think what this shows is that how important it is to speak out. If there's something, if you feel that you're, suffering an injustice and that you're in the right, you can pressure the government, you can lobby for change, even if you're just a 25-year-old woman stuck at home. Look what happened. So.
Yeah, that's really true, and it's a really, positive thing, see the government acting, in this regard. We have actually quite a really good health system, where a lot of stuff which you'd pay, an arm and a leg abroad is free over here. So, it's a really nice thing to add this, onto a free medicine thing. However, I have to say, there are many other people who actually suffer with rare conditions in Malta beyond cystic fibrosis, who already have struggles getting their medicine and their concerns haven't been addressed, And as much as I'm happy for the government, to address this issue, I wish they wouldn't have to wait for public pressure to act in these cases. I'm sure they're pretty well aware already, and rather than be a reactive government, I'd like them to be proactive in the healthcare. We have an amazing healthcare system, and let's just make sure everybody in Malta can get the healthcare they deserve. On to our next story. It's all about a series of videos of public brawls we've seen in Malta over the last few weeks, particularly in recent weeks in the St. Julian's and Parcheville area. Yesterday, Lovin Malta spoke to Albert Buttigieg, who is the mayor of St. Julian's, and he revealed that he's in discussions with police on a proposal to increase night police patrols in these areas. And what that will do is obviously increase policing in the area and hopefully allow police intervention in cases of fights and whatever. This comes obviously after a series of videos were published online, and I think, at least from my end, what was particularly worrying, right, was seeing actually the lack of police presence in some areas, right? In areas where they're actually close to police stations, close to main roads, and no action being taken. I just really, it made me a little bit concerned. However, we've reached out to authorities to see what they're going to say about what they're going to do in a concrete short-term action, to actually solve this issue, particularly ahead of the summer season, right? I don't think people want tourists to be coming, and there are public brawls everywhere.
So this isn't a new problem, far from it. The issue of fights in Parcheville has been here for years, as long as I remember, at least. Police, often don't like being stationed in Parcheville because it's considered to be a graveyard shift. Standing at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, to deal with young people, drunk young people fighting against each other. So why you'd get into policing. So there is that issue over there. It's also interesting that the police have now started using body cams, which could actually be really useful in this regard, by having a policeman filming the incident without actually bringing his phone out and putting a target on their back. And actually having the evidence on themselves. I think it could help, and I think it's actually better than the ridiculous safe city options that were proposed and have thankfully been scrapped for Parcheville. And finally, on to our last story. A theatrical release date has finally been announced for LUZZU, a Maltese film that has already won a number of international awards, including at the Sundance Festival. And it's about a fisherman called Jesmark, who's not playing himself, but he is not an actor, but he's an actual fisherman, and taking part in his debut theatrical film. and it's about a fisherman, the struggles of the struggles of a fisherman in the 21st century, 2021, trying to make a living in the current globalized market, and in fact having to resort to the black market to survive. So I think it's extremely interesting. I'm definitely going to see it. And sorry, the release date has been announced on 8 September. So it's in a few months' time. Put it down in your calendars. It's probably going to be a red carpet event. Hopefully they don't end up closing the cinemas and forcing everyone to watch this online, because I think it will be a real disappointment.
Yeah, it would be a real shame, right? It's a Maltese production through and through, right? You know, with a debut performance from the lead actor, who is, like you said, a fisherman by trade, but actually has won awards for his performance. I'm super excited to see it. I really hope it's in the cinema. It's a Maltese film, a Maltese story, which we rarely ever see, at least to that level of quality. So really make sure, book 8 September. It's going to be a really fun watch. You know, book it in. I think you can actually book tickets already from Eden Cinemas online. So go ahead. I'm going. You should too. That's it from all of us, from us today. And remember, have a day full of lovin'.